Hello and welcome to Forever Box, and today we're going to be doing a bit of a Box barometer. 5 players who I think Rassie Erasmus has to include in the next few Springbok tests due to, first of all, their form, as well as maybe the form of others, really putting these guys at the front of the queue. And they're not necessarily new players, to be honest. In fact, one of them very much a veteran, but a veteran who I think a lot of people have had sort of ruled out or maybe dismissed, and is currently, I think, playing arguably his best rugby ever, and somebody who I don't think should be dismissed at all anytime soon. And very interesting to see which of these players will be involved. I think some of these players are basically just bashing the door down and saying to Rassie Erasmus, you can't just not pick me. You know, I am the best player for you at the moment. You know, look at the performance I'm putting in. And yes, they're all going to get to the stage where they're going to have to take that jersey from the current occupant, because none of these sort of 5 players would start in a World Cup final tomorrow. I think that's kind of the main point. But all making very good cases that if we were to be in a World Cup final tomorrow, they should at least go into the conversation and potentially could maybe even feature in such a scenario. So before we get to them, please do smash a like on the video. Please do subscribe to the channel as well. Let's get into it, shall we? And we're going to start with this man, Jan Hendrik Wessels. Another really, really impressive game from him over the weekend. That bull scrum is a weapon. And we'll talk about one of the main reasons it is such a weapon. But we're looking at a really special player. Now, I'll be the first to admit that last year I felt that when he was sort of drafted into the box, that even sometimes actually at Bulls, felt that he hadn't always earned some of the chances he'd gotten from performances on the park. In terms of consistency, he's a player who was very highly rated at school, was sort of drafted immediately into sort of Bulls professional structures, was drafted into box structures despite barely playing for the Bulls, and was given a debut also despite barely playing for the Bulls. But at the end of the day, you know, coaches see something in a player which not all of us do, and you're now starting to see exactly what it is they saw, because we're now starting to see the Jan Hendrik Wessels we saw at school. You know, a player that has got a massive engine, really good athleticism. He's quick around the park, very good ball carrier, good defender, and now we're sort of combining that to a reasonable scrummer. And I think that the more he works with Don Human, the more he works with an Oxen chair, for example, and the likes of a Geon Cup at the moment at the Bulls, he's going to become such a big asset for the box because he can play at loosehead and at hooker. And that gives the box massive amounts of options when it comes to a player as versatile as him. You can probably play the flank as well if you really needed to. And that's a huge bonus. You know, we've got a player who can pretty much play 2 or 3 different positions within that pack because he is so athletic. And I mean, we saw that the support play he had for that break last year against Australia kind of just demonstrated that. So he's a player who I think that maybe was fast-tracked to a certain degree, but is now looking very comfortable at this level, and I think we'll get a lot of block opportunities because I think they look at him as a key part of the World Cup next year. The next person is, for me, who should be the starting tight head come the Barbarians and that Italy test. You cannot ignore this man right here. Volkolo is just putting in 10 out of 10 performances week in, week out. You cannot move him at scrum time. He is the best scrummager in the URC. At tight end, at least, you know. I mean, maybe an argument can be made for Oxenchair on his day. But, I mean, imagine those two as a combo. Starting or coming off the bench. I mean, Frans Malherbe really struggling with injuries at the moment. Vincent Cox, great player, getting on in years. This man is ready for the tight head crown. And not even just about, you know, he's ready in terms of others getting older. He's ready because I think he's the best and he's most in form at the moment. You know, they've got to give him an opportunity to just take a claim because he's just single-handedly demolishing scrums at the moment and winning penalties and winning Bulls games throughout the season and is up there as one of the nominations for player of the season. Another player who just cannot be ignored anymore is Ethan Hooker, a man of the match performance in the quarterfinals. That try he scored, I think, made a lot of people sit up and go, hang on, that's a different side of Ethan Hooker. We know he's big. We know he's physical. And he's quite fast. You know, he's an amazing athlete. I mean, you look at the size of him, how quickly he is. You know, but what we saw on Saturday with that finish was a bit of individual brilliance and an X factor. You know, we saw a player who can make the right decisions, that can weave in in and out at high speeds, and a work rate which you obviously often get from centers, especially that is a lot better than some players, means that he could potentially be a perfect, for example, bench player for the Boks. He can cover 11, 12, 13, 14, can cover 4 positions in the back line. And looking so comfortable on the wing, despite the fact that he isn't out, in theory, was a centre and had to make the switch, shows you, first of all, how skillful he is and how good he is. And he's another one who was drafted into the Boks last year without maybe having a lot of game time for the Sharks, but is starting to really show right now what they saw in him initially, and the way he keeps collecting these Man of the Match awards. He's definitely going to be around the park. My final 2 are players who are capped, in fact, and kind of in and around the squads. But I tell you what, I think a year or 2 ago, people were sort of ready to say, we love him, absolute fan favorite, Springbok legend, but maybe time to go on. Well, he is deciding not to do that at all. He will not go gently into the night, and that is Makazole Mapimpi. He has been absolutely sensational this season. We keep waiting for him to kind of lose that yard of pace and to be able to sort of start to look like that sort of old wing who can, I mean, a bit like a Keith Earls, who can still play at this level and still looks good. But towards that stage of his career, you can just see he's kind of lost that yard of pace. Just isn't quite as effective. Mapimpi just keeps finding different elements in his game. He keeps finding ways to keep himself in the mix. And, if we were to play a World Cup final tomorrow and he were to start, I would feel absolutely nothing but full confidence that he can do a job. Competing against Cheslin Colby and Kurtley Arendse is not easy at all, although I do think last year was probably, especially towards the end of the year, Kurtley Arendse maybe not as impressive as we've seen him before, but that's a very high standard because he came in and looked so good so quickly. But he's not going to simply give that jersey away. He's not going to give that spot in the squad away as Makazole Mapimpi. He works really hard. He's finding different ways of getting involved. He's not just the out-and-out finisher he was 10 years ago, 8 years ago. He's got so much more to his game. He's getting so much better even now under the high ball. He's finding ways of finding meters from a physicality point of view. His defense. He did slip on Saturday, which was a huge a part of the game, so conceded a try. But he's just continues to lift his level of performance. And I think he'll still very rightfully be involved in the mix. Now, a player who's, first of all, been very good this season, but also beneficial of maybe other struggles, is this man, Monie F. Grant Williams, currently injured. Jaden Henderson not playing his best rugby. Mbosa Pierre, had a really good streak. And I thought it was pretty solid again last weekend, but not really that highly rated by Boks staff. Faf de Klerk last year, not as involved as we would expect. Kobus Rana coming back to the country will make life interesting. There's a gap, I think, at number 9. Not a gap in terms of we don't have the players, but I just think we're not entirely certain who our top players are. Jaden Henderson's not playing the rugby we saw him play 2 or 3 years ago. Grant Williams currently being injured means there's opportunities, and I think that this man is primed to take those opportunities and to become a center piece of that Boks squad. I really think that I think him and Grant Williams are the future 2 number 9s, to be honest, when we move on from Faf de Klerk and Kobus Rana. And I'm a massive Jaden Henderson fan, but he's just not been playing particularly well the last few months. And I think Monie F. and Grant Williams is a combo in terms of Monie F. probably starting and a bit more so technically sound, and then just the X factor, speed, and raw talent of Grant Williams coming on that stages of the game, even vice versa, starting a game well and then finishing off a game. He's had a really strong season, and I think I would love to see him in that squad against the Barbarians. Those are my 5 players who are pretty much sort of saying, got to be involved. What are yours? Let me know down in the comments below. Smash the like on the video. Subscribe to the channel as well. Thank you very much for watching. My name is Steve. I'll chat to you soon.